A lot of guys think that to make a woman miss them after a breakup is to stay visible. It's not. You don't miss what never leaves. So if you've gone through a breakup and you're wondering how to make her feel your absence, how to get her thinking about you again, how to shift that dynamic back in your favor, well, this is where you need to pay very close attention. Because what I'm about to break down in this video is not about chasing her. What it is triggering something psychological that makes her come back on her own. You want to hear this? Jessica OS here. Welcome to the channel. So today I'm going to walk you through 5 psychological shifts that actually make a woman miss you after a breakup. We're going to talk about why distance works, why unpredictability matters, why emotional control is more attractive than anything you could say or do, and how to position yourself so she starts questioning the breakup instead of feeling relieved by it. If you understand this, you won't just make her miss you. Guess what you're going to do? You'll completely change how she remembers you. So if you're ready, let's dive right in. Psychological trick number 1, disappear without announcement. So when a relationship ends, there's an emotional imbalance. One person is usually more invested, more reactive, a little more eager to fix things. And for the purposes of this conversation, I'm going to assume that it is you, the guy, watching me right now, right? So what do? You try to regain control by talking to her, sending long messages, explaining your side of a story, etc. Now, you try to leave things on a good note, but what you're doing is removing the very thing that creates emotional pull after a breakup, which is uncertainty. You see, when you over-explain your exit, you give her a complete, neat, and emotionally processed version of you. There's nothing left for her to figure out. No loose ends or mystery or emotional friction. The truth is she doesn't have to think about you because basically you've already explained everything. You know, if you just disappear, on the other hand, which is what I'm recommending you do, that's where something interesting starts happening in her mind. At first, there's relief, okay? And that's important to understand. Most breakups come with a sense of emotional release, especially if things were like really tense towards the end. Okay, so initially she'll feel a little lighter, and that's fine, you know, like she made the right decision. But then her brain was expecting resistance from you, right? She expected you to reach out, to try. She expected some level of emotional reaction. That's the pattern she was used to. And when that pattern is broken because you didn't do that, it creates a gap. And now she'll start asking questions she didn't have to ask before. Why hasn't he reached out? Did he move on that fast? Was I wrong about him? And people are far more affected by unanswered questions than answered ones. You're no longer giving her emotional closure. You removed yourself from the conversation she thought she'd still have access to. And now she has to sit with her own thoughts. That's where memory starts to distort in your favor. Because without you there to reinforce the negative aspects of the relationship, her mind will begin to filter things very differently. She'll start remembering and thinking about the good moments, the connection, the familiarity, the emotional comfort you provided. And because you're not interrupting that process with needy behavior, reaching out and things like that, those thoughts now have space to grow. Disappearing without announcement doesn't mean ghosting in a childish or reactive way. It means having enough self-control not to chase clarity that doesn't benefit you. And if you feel the urge to reach out, well, it's because you're uncomfortable sitting in the loss of control. And that urge, remember, is not about you. It is about her. And if you act on it, you're not rebuilding attraction. You're relieving your own anxiety at the cost of your position. Listen, the man who wins in a situation like this is the one who can tolerate silence. Because silence, when used correctly, is not passive, it's pressure. Now, does it guarantee that she'll come back? No. And if that's the mindset you have, you're approaching it wrong. It's about shifting the dynamic in your favor and not necessarily controlling the outcome. Control the narrative without talking. So after a breakup, the relationship doesn't end in her mind the way it ended in reality. It gets rewritten. Right? She builds her own story, a story that explains why it ended, why it had to end, why she's better off without you, etc. You know, and that story is what allows her to move on without kind of second guessing herself. Okay. If the story is clean and convincing, she'll move forward very easily. If the story becomes shaky, incomplete, or inconsistent, then she starts to revisit it. So here's some insight for you. If you don't argue or chase or try to correct her perception, her story won't get reinforced. It sits there, unchallenged, but also unsupported. Over time, real-world evidence starts to compete with it. This is where behavior becomes more powerful than words. Hear me. Because instead of telling her who you are, you show her something different. So let's say her narrative about you was, he's too needy and emotionally independent. After the breakup, you start chasing, over texting, trying to explain yourself, the usual. Basically what you're doing is confirming that narrative instantly. Case closed. But if your behavior contradicts it, if you're calm, composed, not reactive, you're not chasing, not trying to pull her back, her story has a problem because it no longer matches what she's observing. And when someone's internal story doesn't match the external reality, it creates some kind of discomfort. And that discomfort is what is called cognitive dissonance. And people resolve that discomfort in one of two ways. They either double down on the story or they start questioning it. And this is where your restraint becomes powerful because you see, you're not feeding that story anymore. You're letting it collapse on its own. Now, here's another layer that you might miss. You don't just control the narrative through how you behave towards her. What you should be doing is controlling it through how you show up in life, okay? People talk, mutual friends observe, social circles overlap, and without you saying a word, information about you will travel. So if what travels contradicts the version of you that she had in her head, it weakens her certainty. She said he was needy, but he seems fine. She said he was lost, but he looks focused. Now her story is under pressure from multiple angles, and the more pressure it faces, the more likely it is to break. But you see, something like this would only work if you stay consistent. Now I'm going to challenge you again, because this is where your discipline will matter the most. You have to let go of the need to be understood immediately, the need to explain. It's a trap. Most men want her to get it right away, to see their value, realize she made a big mistake. But you see, trying to force that realization is what prevents it from happening, because real shifts in perception take time. They happen when there's space, when there's contrast, when there's no pressure, And that only exists if you step back and let your behavior speak for you over time. Upgrade your life quietly. After a breakup, there's this instinct to prove something. You hit the gym harder, start posting more, you show your wins, your lifestyle, your progress, And on the surface, it looks like growth. But if the energy behind it is, I hope she sees this, then basically you're not upgrading, not really. You're just performing. So when I say upgrade your life quietly, what I'm talking about is shifting your identity and not broadcasting your improvements necessarily. I mean, after the breakup, she has a mental image of you, right? That image is based on who you were in the relationship. Things like your habits, your emotions, your routines, your level of discipline, your predictability. That version of you is what she used to justify leaving. Now, the mistake is if you stay the same or worse, if you appear stagnant or reactive after the breakup, you confirm her decision. You become easy to move on from. But if you start evolving in a way she didn't expect, guess what? Something will change. Because she starts noticing it indirectly. Maybe it's through mutual friends. Maybe it's how you carry yourself if you run into her someday later. Maybe it's subtle shifts in your lifestyle, your focus, your energy. And the key is, it doesn't and shouldn't look like you're trying to impress her. It will look like you've moved into a different phase of your life. And that's what will create impact, what creates a psychological gap. Wait, he wasn't like this before. Why does he seem different now? Did I leave too soon? That internal questioning is powerful, but it only happens if the change is real and not performative. A quiet upgrade shows up in 3 key areas. First, your structure. Most men become chaotic after a breakup. Sleep schedule off, gym routine inconsistent, work distracted, energy scattered. A man who's quietly upgrading becomes more structured and not less. That structure that he puts in place creates stability. Stability creates confidence. Confidence is felt, not announced. Second, your focus. Before, a lot of your attention may have been centered around the relationship. Now redirect that focus into something productive. And over time, that will create momentum. And that shift will change how you show up in every interaction. Third, how you control your emotions. This is the part that matters more than anything else. You see, if she sees or hears that you're still reactive, still emotional, still trying to process the breakup out loud, then no matter how much you improve externally, she'll still see the same version of you. When you upgrade quietly, though, you create something called delayed realization. because you're no longer in her face. So she doesn't immediately process what's changed about you. It just happens over time. A thought here, a memory there, a comparison she didn't expect to make. Suddenly the vision of you she left behind won't match the version of you that she's observing. And that delay is what makes it hit harder. Because now it's not you trying to convince her. It's her convincing herself that something about you is different. Guys, if you're starting to see where you may be going wrong after your breakup, and this is hitting a little too close to home, please go ahead and like the video and subscribe as well. Because most men don't lose women because they're not good enough. They lose them because they don't understand things like timing, emotional control, and positioning. Stop being emotionally available. I cannot overemphasize this enough. You see, after a breakup, the connection doesn't just disappear. There's still familiarity, history, emotional access. So what happens? She'll reach out most likely. And it's not because she wants you back, but maybe she's just used to you. Hey, how are you? A random meme, a late night message saying, I was just thinking about you. And a lot of guys will see this as a green light instead of what it truly is. You know, they think, hey, this is my chance. She's opening the door again. So they respond quickly. They engage, become warm again, supportive, all that fun stuff, available, you know? And that's where they begin to make major mistakes. Because what she's actually doing in the moment is testing access and not offering commitment. She's checking if she can still reach you emotionally without having to reinvest in the relationship. And if the answer is yes, if you're still there, still responsive, still emotionally open, then basically there's nothing for her to miss, period. You've essentially allowed her to downgrade you from boyfriend to emotional convenience. You see, I need you to understand that this is truly about access, okay? Before the breakup, she had full access to you. You were part of her daily life. You were her go-to. After the breakup, though, that access should change simply because the relationship that justified that level of access no longer exists. So no, don't try to maintain the same level of emotional presence without the same level of commitment from her. That'll be a mistake. That imbalance will destroy attraction. Women don't miss men who are always on demand. We miss men who had value in our lives. That's now gone. If you're still accessible anytime she wants, then from her perspective, you're not really gone. You're just repositioned. And as long as you remain in that position, she has no urgency to reconsider anything. So I want to challenge you, because you might be thinking, but what if I pull back and she just disappears completely? Well, good. Because that tells you something real. It tells you that the only thing keeping her connected to you was convenience and not genuine desire, not because she cared. And if that's the case, your availability was never going to bring her back anyway. It was only delaying the inevitable while killing your position. On the other hand, if there's still emotional investment on her side, your absence will expose it. She'll feel it. She'll notice that you're no longer the same, that she can't access you the way that she used to. And that disruption will create curiosity, sometimes even anxiety. That's the shift that you're looking for, guys. But it will only happen if you're disciplined enough to hold your position. And finally, psychological trick number 5. Move on. For real. So you can't fake moving on. You can delay your replies, you can post less, you can act calm. But if underneath all of that, your focus is still on her, your energy will give you away. So when I say move on for real, I'm not talking about pretending you don't care. What I'm saying is breaking the emotional dependency that keeps you tied to her outcome. You see, because as long as your mindset is, I hope this makes her come back, everything you do is still orbiting around her. When you generally start moving on, not as a tactic, but a decision, your center of gravity will shift. Your life is no longer porous. Your decisions are no more filtered through, will this bring her back? Now let's talk about what this looks like practically. First, remove her from your daily mental routine. Stop checking her social media. Stop replaying conversations and analyzing what she meant, what she felt, what she might be doing. Because every time you're doing that, you're reinforcing the attachment. And you're basically keeping her active in your mind. 2, I want you to reallocate your energy, not into distractions, but direction. Things like your work, your health, your environment, your social life, your growth. And it's not a way to get over her, but a way to rebuild yourself. You see, because the man who's focused on building doesn't have time to sit in emotional loops. 3, open yourself to new experiences. Moving on means expanding your life, new conversations, environments, challenges, perspectives. The more your world expands, the less central she becomes. You have to be okay with the possibility that she'll never come back. So this is what you don't get to hear a lot. You can't make someone miss you by holding on tighter. You make them miss you by becoming someone they can no longer access the same way. And if you do this right, you don't just increase the chances of her coming back. What you do is you basically put yourself in a position where if she does come back, it will be on your terms. And that's ultimately what you want. Jessica OS here. I hope you got value from this video. If you did, smash the like button, share this with another brother who needs to see this, and subscribe to the channel for more no-nonsense relationship advice. Catch you in the next video. Cheers.